My name is Daniel, and I've always been the reliable one in my family, the one who shows up, who helps out, who never causes drama. I'm the middle child of three siblings, my older sister Jen, who's always been the golden child, and my younger brother Max, who my parents still treat like he's 12 even though he's 24 now. Then there's me, 30 years old, living 15 minutes away from my parents, and always available whenever they need something. Need help moving a couch? Call Daniel. Computer acting weird? Call Daniel. Ride to the airport at 5 a.m.? Daniel will do it. That's been the dynamic for as long as I can remember. And I never complained. That's what family is for, right? Being there for each other. At least, that's what I thought. It all started 3 months ago when I stopped by my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon. I tried to make it a habit to visit them once a week, just to check in. My mom always made a big deal about how important family time was, so I made the effort despite my busy work schedule. That particular Sunday, I noticed something different as soon as I walked in. There was an energy in the air, a kind of excitement. My mom was in the living room sorting through a pile of new summer clothes, price tags still attached. My dad was at the dining table with his laptop open, scrolling through what looked like hotel websites. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, dropping my keys on the counter. "Shopping spree?" My mom looked up, a little startled, like she'd forgotten I was coming over. "Oh, Daniel, just doing some last-minute preparations." "Preparations for what?" I asked, glancing at my dad, who quickly closed his laptop. They exchanged a look, the kind parents think their kids don't notice. I'd seen that look before, usually right before I was about to be disappointed by something. "Well," my dad began, leaning back in his chair, "we're going on a family trip to the Bahamas. 2 weeks at a resort, all inclusive." "That sounds amazing," I said, genuinely happy for them. "When are you guys leaving?" Another exchange of glances. "Next Saturday," my mom replied, suddenly very interested in folding a beach towel. "We've been planning it for months." "Months?" This was the first I was hearing about it. "Cool," I said, trying to sound casual. "So, should I take time off work, or—" The silence that followed was deafening. My dad cleared his throat. "Actually, Daniel, we didn't think you'd be able to get away from work. You know, with that big project you mentioned a while back." I had mentioned a big project, 6 months ago. It had been completed for ages. "And Max is between jobs right now," my mom added quickly, "and Jen can work remotely from anywhere. So the timing just worked out for them." I stood there, processing what they were saying. They had planned a 2-week family vacation and simply hadn't included me. Hadn't even mentioned it to me. Months of planning, and not once did they think to say, "Hey, Daniel, we're thinking of a family trip. Would you like to join?" "Oh," was all I could manage. "I see." "Oh, honey, don't make that face," my mom said, getting up to pat my arm. "We meant to tell you, but the tickets were already booked, and it just slipped our minds. You know how busy it's been with Max's job situation and Jen's promotion?" My dad nodded. "There's always next time sport." Sport. He hadn't called me that since I was 12. I swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Yeah, of course. No big deal. I hope you all have a great time." The rest of the visit was strained. They showed me pictures of the resort, excitedly talking about the activities they'd planned, the restaurants they'd reserved. All while I sat there, nodding and smiling, feeling like an outsider looking in on a family I thought I belonged to. When I finally left, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at their house. The same house I'd grown up in. The same house I'd helped them maintain countless times. The same house I'd always thought of as home. But in that moment, it felt like a place I was merely tolerated, not truly welcome. I drove home in a daze, replaying the conversation in my head. "We meant to tell you." The tickets were already booked. It just slipped our minds. Each excuse felt flimsier than the last. That night I scrolled through our family group chat, looking for any mention of this trip. Nothing, not a single message about vacation plans. But there were separate chats, I knew. My mom had accidentally shown me once when she was trying to show me a photo. A chat with just her, Dad, Jen, and Max. A chat I wasn't part of. The next morning I woke up to a message from my sister. "Hey, sorry about the vacation thing. Mom and Dad should have told you sooner. At least someone acknowledged it was wrong. But sorry they didn't tell me sooner. Not sorry they didn't include me at all. There's a big difference. I replied with a simple, "It's fine," because what else was there to say? The days leading up to their departure were surreal. My mom called twice to ask if I could help Max shop for swim trunks and sunscreen. My dad asked me to come over and check that their automatic sprinkler system was working properly, so their lawn wouldn't die while they were gone. I did both, because that's what I always did. I helped. I showed up. I was reliable. The day before they left, my mom called again. "Daniel, sweetheart, can you drop us at the airport tomorrow? Our flight is at 7 a.m., so we'd need to leave around 4:30. Is that okay?" I agreed, of course. The irony wasn't lost on me. Not important enough to include on the trip, but important enough to provide the free airport shuttle service. That night, I set my alarm for 3:45 a.m., laying out comfortable clothes for the early morning drive. As I tried to fall asleep, I kept thinking about the upcoming weeks. While my family would be enjoying white sand beaches and tropical cocktails, I'd be here, alone, working my usual hours, coming home to my empty apartment, the same apartment my parents had never visited despite multiple invitations. The airport drop-off was as awkward as I expected. My parents, Jen and Max, were all buzzing with excitement, checking documents, talking about the week ahead. I helped unload their luggage onto the curb, making sure everything was accounted for. "Thanks, Daniel," my dad said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We really appreciate it." "No problem," I replied automatically. My mom gave me a quick hug. "We'll bring you back something nice, okay?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Jen gave me an apologetic smile, and Max was too busy checking his phone to even say goodbye properly. I watched them walk into the terminal, their laughter fading as the automatic doors closed behind them. Then I got back in my car and drove to work, 2 hours early, because what else was I going to do? The next 2 weeks were quiet. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, said yes to every social invitation I received. Anything to keep busy, to keep my mind off the fact that my entire family was enjoying a luxury vacation together while I hadn't even been considered. My parents texted occasionally, sending photos of the beach, the resort, the 4 of them at dinner. "Wish you were here," the captions would read, and I'd reply with a thumbs-up emoji, because what was I supposed to say? I could have been there if you'd invited me? I muted the family chat after the 3rd day. It hurt too much to see them having the time of their lives without even a genuine acknowledgement of my absence. By the time the 2 weeks were almost up, I had processed a lot of emotions. Hurt, anger, betrayal, and finally a strange sort of acceptance. Not that what they did was okay, but acceptance that this was where I stood in my family. Convenient when needed, forgotten when not. I was at work, finally feeling like I'd reached some sort of emotional equilibrium. When my phone rang, it was my mom. "Daniel, sweetheart," she began, her voice so warm and familiar it made my chest ache. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "How's the Bahamas?" "Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful," she gushed. "But actually, we're back home now." I checked the date. They weren't supposed to be back for another 3 days. "You cut the trip short?" I asked. No, she laughed. "We came back on schedule, but your father and I, well, we have a surprise." I braced myself. "What kind of surprise?" "We won a cruise," she exclaimed. "Can you believe it? There was a raffle at the resort, and your father put our names in, and we won! A 7-day Caribbean cruise, all expenses paid." "Wow," I said, genuinely surprised. "That's incredible. Congratulations." "It really is amazing," she continued, excitement bubbling in her voice. "But here's the thing. It's just for 2 people, and it leaves this Saturday, so Jen and Max can't come. Just your standard raffle that happens to perfectly continue their vacation without the kids." "Right. That's great, Mom," I said, waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I knew there was more. There's always more. "But the thing is," she said, her voice taking on that tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor, "we weren't expecting to be gone again so soon, and we don't have arrangements for Baxter." Baxter was their 3-year-old golden retriever. A sweet dog, admittedly, but also a high-energy one that required a lot of attention and care. "So we were wondering," she continued. "Could you possibly stay at the house and watch Baxter while we're gone? It would only be for a week, and you know how he hates boarding kennels." There it was, the real reason for the call. Not to check on me, not to see how I was doing after being excluded from their family vacation, but to ask for yet another favor. I sat at my desk, phone pressed to my ear as a strange calm washed over me. It was almost funny, in a sad way. After everything, they still saw me only as the reliable son, the designated helper, the one who would drop everything when called upon. For the first time in my life, I felt absolutely certain about setting a boundary. I took a deep breath and replied, "Oh, I meant to say yes, but I already made plans." Silence on the other end. My mother clearly hadn't expected anything but immediate agreement. "What plans?" she finally asked, confusion evident in her voice. "I'm going away for the weekend," I said, the lie coming easily, "with friends from work. We've been planning it for a while." "But Daniel," she protested, "this is really important. Can't you reschedule with your friends? It's only a week, and you know how your father has been wanting to go on a cruise for years." The irony was almost too much to bear. They couldn't include me in a family vacation they'd planned for months, but I was expected to drop my plans immediately to accommodate theirs. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. "I really can't reschedule. Maybe ask Jen or Max." "Jen's allergic to dogs, you know that," she said, her voice turning frosty. "And Max is staying with friends while he looks for a new apartment. He doesn't have the space." "What about a pet sitter?" I suggested. "I can send you some links if you'd like. There are a lot of great services now." "A stranger? In our house? With our things?" She sounded scandalized. "I don't think so, Daniel. This is really disappointing. We've always been able to count on you." That was the thing, wasn't it? They had always counted on me, but when had I ever been able to count on them? "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said, still calm, "but I really can't help this time. I hope you figure something out." My mother muttered something about talking to my father and hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling a mixture of guilt and vindication. It wasn't a good feeling exactly, but it was necessary. Within an hour, the texts started coming in, first from my dad. "Mom says you can't watch Baxter. Is everything okay, son?" Then from Jen. "Hey, what's going on with the dog sitting thing? Mom's freaking out." Even Max chimed in. "Dude, just watch the dog. They want a free cruise. Don't be a jerk." I didn't respond to any of them immediately. Instead, I finished my workday, drove home, and poured myself a glass of wine. Then I sat down and typed out a group text to all of them. "I'm not available to watch Baxter. I have plans that can't be changed. Here are links to 3 highly rated pet sitting services in your area. All are bonded and insured, with excellent reviews. If none of these work for you, I suggest looking into boarding options. Enjoy your cruise." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find multiple missed calls and messages. My dad had called 3 times. My mom, 4. Jen had sent a lengthy text about family responsibilities and how I was being selfish. Max had simply sent WTF man. I ignored all of it and went about my day. By afternoon, my dad showed up at my workplace, something he had never done before. I saw him talking to the receptionist, who pointed toward my office. When he walked in, he looked both angry and confused, like he couldn't understand what was happening. "Daniel," he said, closing the door behind him, "what's going on with you? Your mother is upset." I gestured for him to sit down, which he did reluctantly. "Nothing's going on," I replied calmly. "I simply have plans that can't be changed." "What plans?" he demanded. "What could be more important than helping your family?" And there it was, the perfect opening. "Funny you should ask that," I said, leaning forward. "I've been wondering the same thing. What was more important than including your son in the family vacation you planned for months? What made it slip your mind to even mention it to me until I found out by accident?" My dad's face fell, his anger giving way to discomfort. "That was different," he mumbled. "We didn't think you could get away from work." "You didn't ask me," I pointed out. "Not once. If you had, I would have told you that I have plenty of vacation days saved up, that I would have loved to spend time with my family, but you didn't ask because you didn't want me there. That's not true. he protested, but weakly. Isn't it? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I'm only part of this family when you need something from me. Airport rides, computer help, dog sitting. But when it comes to actually including me in family experiences, I don't make the cut. My dad looked genuinely shocked. Daniel, we never meant to make you feel that way. Maybe not intentionally, I conceded. But that doesn't change the fact that you did. And now you're upset because for once I'm not available to drop everything and help out. Do you see the double standard? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he finally looked up, there was a hint of recognition in his eyes, maybe even shame. I never thought of it that way, he said softly. I know, I replied. That's the problem. We talked for a while longer, more honestly than we had in years. I told him how it felt to be the reliable son who was never properly appreciated, how it hurt to see photos of them all together, enjoying experiences I wasn't even invited to participate in, how exhausting it was to always give and rarely receive. To his credit, my dad listened, really listened, perhaps for the first time. I'm sorry, he said when I was finished. We've taken you for granted. I've taken you for granted, and I'm sorry. It wasn't a magic fix. One conversation couldn't undo years of established patterns, but it was a start. What about the cruise? He asked eventually. I really do have plans, I said. I'm taking some of those vacation days I mentioned and going to a cabin upstate with friends. It's been booked for weeks. It was a lie, but a necessary one. I needed this boundary to stick. My dad nodded slowly. I understand. We'll figure something out with Baxter. He left shortly after, looking thoughtful. I felt drained, but oddly peaceful. Setting boundaries is hard, especially with family, but it was long overdue. That evening, I booked myself a cabin upstate for the weekend, turning my lie into truth. If my family thought I was going away, then I might as well actually go. Take some time for myself. Think about what kind of relationship I wanted with them moving forward. The next day, I received a text from my mother. We've hired a pet sitter for Baxter. Your father and I would like to have dinner with you when we get back from the cruise. There are some things we need to discuss as a family. I replied with a simple, okay, not knowing what to expect, but knowing that something had shifted. Whether it was a temporary adjustment or the beginning of a real change, only time would tell. As I packed for my impromptu solo getaway, I reflected on the situation. It wasn't about the vacation, not really. It wasn't even about dog sitting. It was about respect, about being valued as more than just a convenient resource, about being considered, about being part of the family in all ways, not just when it benefited them. I don't know what will happen with my family going forward. Maybe we'll have that honest conversation and things will improve. Maybe they'll slip back into old patterns once the initial discomfort passes. Maybe our relationship will change entirely. What I do know is that I've changed. I've learned that it's okay to say no, that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary, that sometimes the most loyal thing you can do for yourself is to stop being blindly loyal to others. And as I drove toward the mountains that Friday, windows down, music up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time when thinking about my family: hope. Not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time, I was part of the equation. My feelings mattered. My presence, or absence, was acknowledged. Sometimes the most important statement isn't what you say, but what you don't say. Sometimes the most powerful position isn't one of anger or confrontation, but one of quiet dignity and self-respect. So no, I didn't watch their dog. And no, I didn't scream or shout or make a scene. Instead, I simply stood my ground and mirrored back to them exactly what they had shown me: that some things just slip your mind when you're busy making other plans. Let me know in the comments.